Okay, folks, how you doing there? It's your buddy Mike Messier, and breaking news from the world of pro wrestling is that Vincent Kennedy McMahon has retired, apparently. So that's pretty interesting stuff. And the allegations and the investigations going on with some NDAs. Apparently, 12.5 million's the dollar sign now. Over the years, over the last 16 years, that Vince McMahon Jr. has had to pay for women to sign non-disclosure agreements based on dalliances with the boss. So the shadow of that is looming, and we don't know exactly what Vince is up against. I don't think there's any criminal charges against Vince. It's more of a reputation type of thing. So I don't think it can be understated that the reason why Vince is retiring today on Friday, July 22nd, 2022, after essentially, I think, since 1981, being in charge of what we now know as the WWE, formerly the WWF, formerly the WWF, and having the origins in Capital Wrestling. Vince was kind of forced to retire. So, there's going to be so many people with opinions and hot takes and this and that. And I just watched, Renee Young, her little 15-second clip, and just, turning a blind eye to what's really happening. And I don't do that. I mean, I always keep in mind what's really happening in the world with these situations and full eyes open. Vince didn't really want to retire, I'm sure. He's retiring because it's a PR nightmare. The sins of his past, these NDAs, it's all come back to tarnish him, to taint him. If there's further revelations or disclosures that are even more loaded than what's been released, I guess we'll find out soon enough. But for me, it is what it is. I mean, it's just, see, here's the problem. There's going to be a certain segment of the population of, wrestling fans or phased wrestling fans, or what do they call it? Lapsed wrestling fans. A certain amount of you will tune in to WWE SmackDown tonight, wondering if suddenly, magically, there's going to be some type of big change in WWE entertainment. I would guess they're probably going to do a 3 to 5 minute tribute to Vince, either right at the beginning of the show or halfway through, or maybe they'll pepper that throughout the show. So basically, it was a Friday afternoon ratings ploy. I mean, Vince was not going to retire just for the one-off. I mean, but basically, if they're going to make this announcement, better to make it on a Friday afternoon than a Thursday afternoon, because more people, like the idiot McMarks that people are, they'll tune into SmackDown to see what happens. I can see where some fans might feel good about the fact that Stephanie McMahon and the gentleman Nick Khan will now be co-COOs of the group, or co-people. I mean, Stephanie's still a McMahon. I mean, it's interesting that Shane's nowhere to be seen in this picture, by the way. Shane, of course, left the WWE for 7 years to pursue his own life. And Shane's nowhere to be seen in all this. So all those dives off the Hell in the Cell, all those body splashes off the top of a cage, all those things that Shane McMahon did trying to impress his father apparently didn't work, okay? Because nowhere have we seen Shane McMahon's name in a position of power. I mean, maybe him and X-Pac will have a 30-year reunion European title match at next year's Backlash as some type of gift from Stephanie. Triple H, meanwhile, Hunter Hearst Helmsley, or Levesque, Paul Levesque, as the insiders call him, his real name, he is apparently back as the head of talent relations, which is taking over John Laurinaitis' spot. Johnny Laurinaitis, who was also kind of thrown into the mix, or was in the mix of these Vince McMahon allegations and NDAs and so forth, and controversies. So John Laurinaitis is out. I think a lot of people, even Jim Ross, really doesn't think highly of Johnny Laurinaitis at times. I was just listening to the Jim Ross podcast where he was talking about that WrestleMania 19 match where Brock Lesnar almost broke his own neck doing a somersault splash onto Kurt Angle, and I think Jim Ross basically said that he thought that Johnny Laurinaitis was the producer of that match or the agent of that match, and he kind of blamed Johnny Laurinaitis. So we know that Jim Ross doesn't like Johnny Laurinaitis because Laurinaitis took his job as the head of talent relations, and Ross doesn't like Johnny Ace, nor does Sid Vicious's leg. Hey, Juan, been a while, buddy. I still think Sasha Banks is leaving. She needs a clean, fresh start in AEW. I hope WWE and AEW can have a working relationship now. Well, hey, if there was a time that the WWE would be more open to working with other companies, it would be like a Vince is gone, and Triple H and Stephanie are the more open-minded, progressive liberals who are going to welcome in Mickie James, Impact Women's Champion, to the Women's Royal Rumble. We saw that happen earlier this year. It seems like a long time ago, but it was only January of 2022. A couple of years ago, we saw Jushin Liger wrestle at NXT for one night. I think it was just a one-night deal. So, I mean, I think it's quite possible. And I think Mickie James, before she re-signed with WWE, I think she came in for a one night against Asuka for the NXT Women's title years ago. Also, I was watching some type of video, Juan, on YouTube about kind of like the history of the Forbidden Door. And they're basically talking about shows like Super Clash 3, the AWA show that had Kerry Von Erich versus Jerry Lawler, and like the Tangle in Tampa. Actually, that wouldn't be that. It would be the Superstar Graham versus Harley Race, WWF champion versus NWA champion way back when. Rick Martel versus Ric Flair in Japan, AWA world champion versus NWA world champion. And they did mention this thing back in 1990 that the WWE did, or the WWF did, with both All Japan and New Japan Pro Wrestling. And I think it was called the Super Show or the Super Cup or something, the Super Do Wrestle Super or something. So Tenaru, I believe, wrestled Randy Savage, and Stan Hansen wrestled Hulk Hogan, amongst other matches. And so the fact that the WWE was involved in that, which was New Japan and All Japan doing a show together, I think it was called the Wrestle Summit or something. But basically, that would be the equivalent of like some type of AEW, Jon Moxley versus Roman Reigns or whatever the fuck you want to do. A lot of the dream matches actually have already happened because, to be honest, some of the top AEW guys now, some of them are injured, but guys like Bryan Danielson and CM Punk and Jon Moxley and Jericho, they've all kind of wrestled over there in WWE, and they've wrestled a lot of the guys that are now at the top over there. Here's a nice person. I haven't heard you from a while. I never thought I'd see this day. No Soy Montana. Good to see you again. I remember you had some comments a while ago. So thanks for coming back. Neither do I, buddy. I mean, I thought if you want further listening beyond, I mean, you're welcome to watch all my videos, but that Chris Jericho interview with Jon Moxley when Moxley was first starting in AEW, the interview is now almost 3 years old, but if you can find that on the Jericho podcast, the first time Moxley was on after leaving the WWE, Moxley said it best. We all know the old man's going to die in the chair, I believe is what he said. So he hasn't died. He has retired. on the good note for Vince, look, folks, I don't really know what happened behind closed doors, behind closed locked doors in Titan Tower, what he did or didn't do, or who he did or who he didn't do, and the payments. I mean, you got to think in some guttural level. If you have to pay people $12.5 million to keep their mouths shut, you did something wrong. Sorry, maybe that's just the cynic in me. Nobody pays $12.5 million out of the kindness of their heart. I mean, so we know that there's some dirt underneath these fingernails in Titan Tower, right? Let's not be naive, idiot McMarks. Let the idiot McMarks be idiot McMarks. We'll be more intelligent than that. But basically, as a wrestling fan, as someone who kind of goes in and out of WWE, I have my problems with the way they've sold their soul, as you know, to the Saudi Arabian Sports Authority and so forth. But Vince has provided, in his own warped sense, WrestleMania and SummerSlam and so on and so forth. Mikey, yes, I couldn't be happier. Mr. McMahon is gone. Yay. And there's going to be some people like me and you, David, Benny Scala, my buddy, maybe even good old Angelo. We'll be dancing in the streets with joy. And other folks, like my buddies over there, Monty and the Pharaoh, they are big Vince McMahon supporters. So, I mean, this is a very polarizing situation. What I'm not going to do is be like, I hate to say it, but Renee Young, and just put out this whitewashed video of positivity and gratefulness. I'm trying to do the hand thing, the gratefulness. I mean, let's just keep it real, okay? The reality is he was forced out. The other reality is, according to the reports I'm reading, he's retired from all his positions. But do we really believe he won't have some influence in the company? And he's still the majority owner. So he hasn't given up his ownership. Who would he give it over to? I mean, I think the thing is, if the people, meaning me and you and everybody else who's watching this video or thinking about watching SmackDown tonight, if you're going to do that, you're still pumping your money into Vince's pockets. Vince is still a big part of this thing. He's the fucking owner. So if Stephanie and Triple H, if Triple H is going to get Tyler Breeze, the NXT Cruiserweight Tag Team title with Fandango, or if Triple H is going to go out and sign Peter Avalon and make him a big star, or whatever you think is going to happen, it might, but all that money is going to go right back to Vince. So, I mean, Vince in a sense, good for him, because he can now go and he can, push his old crinkled ass onto any woman in that Trump Tower that he wants. He's got plenty of money to impress these women that he, surrounds himself with when he can. And, a lot of young women, let's be honest, if an old rich guy has money, they're in. Some of these women will do an old guy if they're going to get a car ride in a limo or something. So I'm just telling you how it is in showbiz. Just a white rapper with some street knowledge. I write the rhymes for you. Kick this one for the VIP crew. I'm just telling you what's happening, unfiltered. Am I happy? Am I sad? I'm surprised, but we saw this coming. So it's not the end of the world, folks. I think in a sense, good for Vince that, if there's no charges against Vince, he's not going to go to jail as far as we know. He kind of did the right thing here. He did do the right thing. He stepped aside. He's still going to get his money, and he can go fuck all the women that he wants. So, and pay the price, if he has to, for more NDAs or whatever he has to do. But at least in theory, so to speak, he's gone from our televisions. He's gone from creative. He's done pushing wrestlers that don't deserve to be pushed and trying to cram John Cena or Roman Reigns down our throats as the number one babyface. At least we have a reprieve from bad creative. Poor Triple H, the guy's walking around with a pacemaker in his chest now. I think people 5, 6, 7 years ago, they would have liked that Triple H when he was running NXT to be doing this. Michael AJ Norris is happy. Well, creatively, he's probably dead there. Michael AJ, he's still alive. I think he set Laurinaitis up as the fall guy. That's just my opinion. Fair enough. But I mean, Laurinaitis, if you ever listen to Jim Ross's podcast, David John, you can hear that. Laurinaitis is very mixed reputation. Like basically a lot of people don't like him. You can listen to Jim Cornette or Jim Ross tell these stories. But in essence, John Laurinaitis was the guy that sent Big Sid Vicious to the ring and told him to jump off the second rope and land on one foot, which basically gave Sid one of the worst leg injuries ever in professional wrestling. Can you see me now or what? Someone called me to disrupt me. There we go. Someone called, their phone call interfered with my podcast here. So people need to learn to not call me when I'm doing these things. And now I'm going to I was looking for the goddamn silence button and I can't find it, of course. People are texting me. People are excited because they know I'm on the road. I'm traveling north. So everybody wants to get their mic time in, blah, blah, blah. For Christ's sake. So anyway, an interesting day for wrestling. Now I'm putting the leave me alone button on. An interesting day. And, but meet the new boss, same as the old boss. You know what I mean? Will there really be changes? Mikey, nope, I seen it August 1st. Oh, yes, the movie Nope. I actually could have seen it last night, but I was preparing myself for the trip north. And so I did not see it last night. I will see Nope soon enough. I've liked the previous movies, Us, and before that, Get Out. I thought Us was a little underrated. I do want to say this, though. It's Jordan Peele is the name of the director, and he's the same guy from Key and Peele, right? If I can have all this shit straight, all my pop culture lessons and personalities, and I got to memorize all the names of all the Kardashians in case anyone cares. But if you remember, M. Night Shyamalan started pretty strong with The Sixth Sense, and then his next movie, I think, was called Invincible or Unbreakable or Invincible with Bruce Willis and Samuel Jackson. And then I don't know if his next movie was Signs, but eventually M. Night's movies, they all kind of had the same pattern. They had the same bullet points. And eventually they got fucking old. You know what I mean? And I just want to say that I hope that this Nope movie is a little bit of a departure, because Us was fairly close to Get Out in types of mood and things like that and subtext. And I'm just hoping that Jordan goes a little bit different with this Nope movie, but I haven't seen it yet. Theory will lose bank briefcase to Ziggler. I mean, he might, but it's just stuff that I can't really care about. It's just beneath me to care. No offense to you, but just the WWE storylines, the Money in the Bank thing has just been played out for 20 years, and I'm just over it now. It doesn't excite me. I think they should discontinue the Money in the Bank briefcase, to be honest. It's just silly. Will Rob Zombie's movie career be hurt when Musterns go to Netflix over theatrical premiere? I don't think so. I think, Adam Sandler almost maybe 7 or 8 years ago, maybe less, he signed a multi-year contract, I believe, with Netflix to produce movies pretty much specifically for Netflix and crank out the movies with, his buddies David Spade and so forth. And it's all about the money these days, so the different, I mean, what do you mean? If he's getting paid, if it's a guaranteed thing for this Monsters movie, I mean, look, man, I go to the movies all the time. As you know, I actually go to the theater, and I don't see a lot of other people in there. You know, I went to see Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris 2 nights ago. I was the only MFer in that fucking theater. I took my shoes off. I took my socks off. I cracked my neck. And I really relaxed and enjoyed myself. And, you know, there was no one else there. So, and a lot of times, as you know, I give you the straight story. If I go to the movie theater and there's no one else in the theater, I tell you that. Because if you're looking for what I like to call public privacy, you know, you go out to a public place, but you have some space to yourself. And that's kind of the best thing in the world, really. When you go to the movie theater and there's no one else there, you feel like a little goddamn king. So in that regard, more people should go to the movie theaters. To answer your question, Michael, I don't think so. I don't think it's going to hurt his career at all. I think if he's getting paid, and look, I think it's more like the how do you say, the content. The Munsters could be a theatrical hit, but I think more like in the mid '90s that would have been a big theatrical hit. I think now there's just been so many generations that have come and gone since the original TV series, or even I think there was a '90s reprieve, Munsters Today or something. I think there's been so many generations removed from the original Munsters that I just don't know if theatrically would it be that big a deal unless they cast some really big known people. And I don't know if the biggest names are going to want to be in that movie. I know Kevin Nash, who I've shared scenes with, as you know, in a movie that I co-wrote, The Manor. Kevin Nash has expressed an interest in playing Herman Munster. I don't know if he's attached as Herman for Rob Zombie's thing. I'm sure he'd like to be. Why is Trump still crying over Biden? He can't move on, can he? You know, man, I think I was going to say this earlier about Vince. When Vince announced his retirement today, it's kind of a way of fading heat. Like, okay, I'm getting all this heat on me because of all these NDAs. Well, I'm going to fade that heat by retiring. So people, if they do have issues with me, if they do have a problem with me, this is Vince speaking in his little mind. I can just fade the heat and say, hey, I'm retired. You know, I don't even work for that company anymore. You know, so any residual anger towards Vince is attempted to be swept under the rug or whitewashed, and they can say, well, that was Vince's era. We do things differently now. That could be Triple H's line. You know, so. I mean, so with Vince and Trump or Trump and Biden, I don't know what Trump said today. I mean, I think he's trying to, whatever he pins on President Biden, it's because Trump's trying to avoid jail time. I mean, there's a real possibility here, folks. It could take a while, and we're talking lawyers, guns, and money, but there's a real possibility we will live long enough to see a former president serve time. So, I mean, talk about that. I've been speaking with friends of mine about that. If all was fair in the world, if all was on the upswing, Trump probably would serve time. But because of all the idiot McTrump people out there who support him and live by his word, and they can listen to Liz Cheney. They can listen to all the people that worked for Trump who are saying that they were disgusted with him. You know, I believe his press secretary basically resigned the night of January 6th, 2021 and so forth. But how's it going, Carl? How can we say that good old Trump is not living in his own warped reality? He didn't care about Mike Pence, his vice president. He didn't care about the other members of the people in the Capitol building, the other politicians or the security, the police officers who lost their lives trying to keep our country in one piece. Another thing that might be examined is like this whole deal of like, you know, the lame duck president. Like if a president has been voted out of office, do we really need, you know, basically 2 months to make this transition? I mean, maybe that's a mistake. Mike, what is thoughts on Rotten Tomatoes? The site reviews movies to TV shows. To be honest, buddy, not much. Rotten Tomatoes, no offense, I have no connection to them. I don't. I know that they exist, and I know that it's like the movie-going audience makes the votes, right? But I typically don't go there either before or after I see a movie. I just make my own opinions, and I have my own opinions, and I make my videos. That's why I try to avoid. When I was a kid, I mean, Siskel and Ebert and then Siskel and Robert, they were badasses because they would tell you the straight up deal with these movies and not give away all the bullet points and still make you want to go see the movie with their thumbs up routine. And they had a very interesting show, good show. But I mean, I'm not going to trust a bunch of derelicts, you know, from my country or from the world to judge these movies before I go see them. I mean, apparently this Where the Crawdads Swim or Where the Crawdads Sing, I believe that's not getting very good marks from critics and from the Rotten Tomatoes, but I enjoyed the film. I enjoyed it very much. I'll probably see it again. So I like to make my own opinions. I do appreciate the question, though. It's a good question. I just, there was a thing years ago called Film Threat, a website that reviewed some of my stuff. And they gave one of my projects like the highest rating and the second project, the second highest rating. But I mean, then I sent in a third project and they slaughtered it. It's hot here in Illinois. Well, I've been driving all day, buddy. I'm in North Carolina now. I'm in Fayetteville. I'm driving north. And I believe it was hot in Florida and hot throughout my drive. I just was in my air-conditioned vehicle, listening to books on tape, listening to some wrestling things. I listened to Chris Von Vliet interview Mr. Kennedy, Ken Anderson. That was pretty good. He was at that WrestleMania. Well, was he at WrestleMania 22, Carl? The one that you went to in Chicago? I can't recall. But in any event, yeah, so I'm sorry to hear that it's hot. You want to stay cool. Go to a film if you can. Go to a coffee house if you can. Get some air conditioning, Carl. Hopefully you have that at home. If not, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, maybe take some wet sponges and cool yourself down. Let's see. Mikey, Group Pantera coming back. I think it's not going to be a success as it was. Yeah, I trust me, Pantera is like one of those things that I know it exists, but I've never really engaged with it. Kind of like Stranger Things, to be honest with you. You know, so I know that Pantera's been around forever. I just don't know what to say. I mean, is that the band with the guy with like the long goatee thing, like the long chin fucking thing, the chin dread or whatever the fuck it is? I mean, I really have not much to say, good or bad, about Pantera. I know that they're an iconic band. I mean, years ago I saw the Misfits, okay? And it was obviously not a Glenn Danzig Misfit outfit, but a couple of the original Misfits were there still or whatnot. And it was fun, but I didn't go out and buy all the Misfits albums in the world. Zach says, my boy Vince really just dipped on us. Yeah, man, he's done. I mean, he's retired, but like I was saying earlier, buddy, he's still the majority owner. So if there's like a renaissance or a renewed interest or renewed hope from, you know, the lapsed wrestling fans or the casual fans or the AEW fans or whatnots, all your money still goes to Vince's pockets. You know, if you think you're supporting Triple H and Stephanie and their vision of wrestling and it's going to go back to NXT Black and Gold, it's just, that's fine, because Vince is getting that money too. It's your same dollar in Vince's other pocket, is what I used to say. True, I will always love Vince. Well, at least you're man enough to admit it. I mean, you know, I have done many videos where I've spoken about this gentleman. He has contributed to the soundtrack of our lives, as I like to say, with, you know, if you watch commentary from any 80s wrestling, I think he might have started in the late 70s as a commentator. But I don't know what to say. I mean, you know, I did a whole video about a year and a half ago with my thoughts on Vince McMahon. If you dig that one up, it's somewhere. It's in my car. It's late at night. About a year and a half ago, so early 2021. And I kind of spelled out all the good things I could think of when I think of Vince and all the bad things. And there's plenty of both. I mean, from the top of my head, what I remember saying was, yes, WrestleMania is a great thing. And the Rock and Wrestling Connection and Saturday Night's Main Event and the advances in how wrestling is kind of perceived by the masses, I guess. But for a lot of people like myself, I liked it the old way. And I think the old way was better. And I think Junior stabbed a lot of people in the back. And, are we going to whitewash what happened with Jimmy Snuka in New York? Are we going to whitewash what happened with Owen Hart in St. Louis in 1999? I'm not whitewashing that. And these, 16 years of NDAs costing Junior $12.5 million. And like I said earlier, you don't pay $12.5 million because you're a nice guy. You pay it because you did something, and now you're paying the price. So are we supposed to forget about that? Michael AJ Norris, ICP or Misfits? Who was better in wrestling or both bad? Good question. I'm going to give you two answers, buddy. I prefer the Misfits because I think they did some stuff with Raven. Didn't they? Wasn't it like Raven and the Misfits in WCW? ICP, though, you have to give them credit. They actually had some matches, I think both in WCW and WWE, and their own Juggalo wrestling. And I don't think the Misfits ever did anywhere close to all that. I think the Misfits were limited to just a couple of shots with WCW, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. Hey, what's up, Steven? Good to see you, buddy. As you may or may not know, I'll be heading north. I'm in North Carolina now on my journey, my long day's journey into New England. But basically, what do I think? I've done the whole video here. You're welcome to rewind later and check it out. But I have a lot of thoughts. And the basic thing that I'm trying to get across, everybody, is this is not the time to go rushing to your television to watch SmackDown thinking some big change is happening. Or Vince is gone, this is going to be awesome. Or Vince is gone, this is going to suck. I really think it's going to be, at least for the short term, pretty much what you've been seeing for a while. I don't think this close to SummerSlam they're going to do anything drastic with their presentation for SummerSlam. I think they're going to stay the course. If I have my times right, this is Friday night, and then SummerSlam's a week and 1 day away. I think it's all going to be status quo. Awesome, bro. You and Tom should do the End Action get together. Well, we are planning that for next Tuesday or Wednesday. We're going to have a different type of format because we'll both be in the same vicinity. Mikey, now Vince McMahon done. Will Nick Khan go too? No, he's been promoted, actually. He issued a fail system on Vince and Bruce and John. Apparently, Nick Khan and Stephanie McMahon, AJ, are now the co-COOs. So it's actually quite the opposite. Nick Khan is not going anywhere. Bruce Pritchard's name has not been mentioned, as far as I know, as any type of promotion or demotion. He was always kind of known as Vince's right-hand man. Apparently, Stephanie and Bruce had some history. I don't know if they've patched things up. If you are a listener to Something to Wrestle, you've noticed that Bruce has been very bad about doing new episodes for the last year or two since he's been back with WWE. And I don't even think he should do those Something to Wrestle with podcasts anymore, because I think his heart's not into it and he doesn't have the time. So, I mean, if he gets fired from the WWE again, which I guess would be for the third time in his career, then he can go back to doing better podcasts. Nobody wants Vince to be a co-CEO. I fear him causing Stephanie to step down. That's just me. Well, Vince is not. It's Nick Khan and Stephanie are the co-CEOs. So I'm not sure if you got the I'm not sure if you're just speculating there, Zach, or what. Nobody wants Vince to be a I'm trying to figure out what you're saying here. Nobody likes Nick. Okay. I'd rather have Steph and Paul, Triple H, as co-CEOs. Here's the danger in that. Are you ready? Are you ready? They are a married couple. Okay. So for their own marriage, I don't think that that would be very good to be co-CEOs. Now, some marriages are so strong and can survive anything. I'm not so sure about that. I don't know. I'm not them. I'm just saying that's a lot to go to work to run a company as co-CEOs, and then to go have to have dinner and lunch and raise 3 daughters and I mean, whatever they do for their personal time with each other. I think that's just too much for any couple. And, as much as Vince is kind of this outlier, I think Stephanie and Triple H are more like regular people in a sense. So I think that that would not work. Well, when you say nobody likes Nick, I think the reason why they probably don't is because a lot of wrestlers got fired, which upsets the fans of the particular wrestlers that get fired, and it makes the other wrestlers feel like they're walking on eggshells. And I mean, you talk about Braun Strowman, Bray Wyatt, my buddy Jimmy Faluca's favorite wrestler, Bray Wyatt. All those people were fired under Nick Khan's orders, apparently, and so we've been led to believe. So I can see why he's not popular. But internally, if he's helping them streamline their company and so forth, and apparently Nick Khan is the guy behind some of these multi-million-dollar deals, he's probably more popular with the stock owners, and he's probably very popular with Vince too. Mike, what's going on with AEW and -1, John Huber's son? I saw something about that today, buddy, that basically there's been some online people, the Twitter feeds or whatnot, are basically they're criticizing -1, who's Brody Lee's son, aka John Huber. They're criticizing the fact that this kid is getting some airtime. Usually he's on the dark shows and the YouTube shows, and I guess the kid's 12 or 13, and he did some type of shtick work a while ago where he was threatening to beat up QT Marshall when QT is older, or when the kid is older, like saying I'll beat you up when I turn 19 or something. I wouldn't doubt that either, Zach. He might just show up as a character. I'm going to get to this Brock Lesnar thing. Okay, I'm going to get to all of this stuff, guys. As far as the AEW, let's go back to this. I got to think it's just, I don't know. I mean, I don't think that they've pushed the kid too much. I mean, yeah, it's a little bit, it's very unusual for like a underage person to be getting so much airtime. But I mean, look, ECW did stuff with Sandman's son. I think Tommy Dreamer once did a little something with his daughters at ringside. I could be wrong. They've used kids in wrestling. Dominic is a perfect example. Here's Dominic wrestling. But how old was Dominic? 6 or 7? When he first got on TV. So it's been, and the kid from WWE who won the tag team title, Nicholas. So all these things, but what do we say here? I mean, I think the kid's father fucking died. You know what I mean? So let's let the kid have his fun. It's not hurting anybody. They're not really burying anybody, like even QT Marshall or whatever. They're not having the kid, have a super punch or whatever. He's just a kid. And I actually feel more sorry for his younger brother, because that's the kid that doesn't get any airtime or anything. Meanwhile, -1 is hanging around with Tay Conti and all these other things. That might be a good match. -1 versus... what's his dick? Sammy Guevara, for the love of Tay Conti, in 6 years. So we can book this kid's whole life. Yeah, okay, here's the Brock thing. Brock is a Vince guy. He probably knows that he won't get the same pay or same creative he received before. If Vince is truly stepping away, then he should have tribute Raw. Well, I think this was all announced today, buddy. So, I mean, if you have anyone to take issue with, it would be Vince himself. I mean, he's the one who's making these announcements of retiring. So if he was forced to, if there was some type of news item that was being held over his head or whatever, we don't really know one way or the other what that is. So, but it's really Vince's own doing. As far as Brock leaving, I think that might be just a way for Brock to try to get a few more zeros on the latest paycheck, to be honest with you. I mean, I think Brock, if he's saying that he's leaving, well, why would he? I mean, Vince willingly retired, right? I mean, so why wouldn't Brock honor his contract? Because he's probably trying to manipulate the situation to get more money for himself so he can put more steroids up his ass, okay? Orange Cassidy, AEW, R-Truth. I say you're saying that Orange Cassidy is the R-Truth of AEW. I can see that. A comedic guy, a mascot type of wrestler, Slapowitz, you might call him. Mascot. I mean, and to be honest with you, Orange Cassidy can work when he wants to in Orange Cassidy fashion. He's an acquired taste. He does more for me personally than Danhausen. I still haven't gotten the whole Danhausen thing with the curse and all that crap. So as far as these comedy gimmick guys go, I do think Orange Cassidy has kind of a cool gimmick. I mean, he can wrestle matches when he wants to. This will be interesting, Zach. My top 5 dream matches. Finn Balor, I'm assuming you mean Cody Rhodes, unless you mean Dusty Rhodes. Did Finn Balor and Cody Rhodes ever wrestle in WWE? I can't recall, buddy. Did they ever wrestle in the indie circuit? I don't know. Finn Balor versus Will Ospreay. I guess that would have some Bullet Club legacy ramifications. CM Punk versus Theory would seem very similar to me to be like CM Punk versus MJF, but just the sanitized MJF. Even if Theory had an open mic, I don't know if he could do the mic work as of what's his face, MJF. Roman Reigns versus The Rock versus Cody versus CM Punk. So I assume you mean like a 4-man match, a 4-way. If that were to be an elimination, that would be good. Roman versus The Rock versus Cody versus CM Punk. Yeah, very interesting booking there. You have your Hollywood celebrity, your part-time champion, your injured guy, your injured Waffle House chef, and you have the missing pectoral guy. But if they were all healthy and active, yeah, it would be a good match. Miz versus MJF. Yeah. I mean, that's, like I said, that's like the sanitized. I mean, who would be really interesting? And I've been trying to watch some of this EC3 stuff because EC3, Ethan Carter III, was kind of the MJF before MJF, and people used to say things about Ethan Carter III, like, is he a Miz ripoff, or he's better than the Miz, or whatever the fuck, and all that has been kind of put on MJF. Eddie Kingston is Brooklyn Brawler mixed with Savio Vega. Interesting, but no offense to either Savio or the Brawler. I don't know if either one of those gentlemen had the mic skills of Eddie Kingston. As far as the look goes, the outfits, the heritage, I can see that. Although if I had to guess, I would guess that Steve Lombardi, the Brooklyn Brawler, is Italian-American. And I believe Eddie is, like half Irish and half black or something. I don't know. Or half Cuban. I don't know what to tell you. But Eddie, I think you're not a fan of Eddie Kingston is what I'm getting from that, AJ. Maybe you are. Maybe that's a compliment. But Eddie's okay. I mean, I think he's just happy to have a job. And that barbed wire match was pretty interesting. Is Eddie Kingston, I think he should have gotten the victory over CM Punk last summer because it seemed like they had a really hot hand with Eddie Kingston for like a glimmer of a time. AEW had lightning in a bottle with Eddie Kingston. And I think that loss to CM Punk kind of wiped it out. Honestly, the past 2 years have been crazy. if you mean the world in general or the pro wrestling world, yeah, either way, to be honest with you. I mean, if you look at, you're talking about the Capitol Riot building, or you're talking about the wrestling world with Junior now retiring, AEW coming into prominence, these Forbidden Door situations, Becky Lynch, all these things, all these combustible engines, this recipe for chaos. It certainly is interesting. Pro wrestling world. Yeah, I kind of thought you were talking about the pro wrestling world, but there's always an overlap, buddy, of the real world and pro wrestling. And, I think we might end on that. It's been a 45-minute live interactive situation here. I know Carl wants to do a video soon. And haven't forgotten you, Carl. I've just been very caught up in other stuff. So no offense, Carl. We'll get it together soon, buddy. Trust me on that. I think some new comments. Mikey, can you do me a favor? Watch Popcorn Movie. It's free on YouTube. It's a horror movie. Give me your thoughts on future stream. But okay, that sounds good. Popcorn sounds like fun. I do like horror. So Popcorn horror film. I'll be looking for that. Okay, and I guess we got Zach saying one more thing. If you heard that WWE was closing down, what would you say? Good question. I could see them doing this possibly, Zach, but I really don't even think this is going to happen. I more so than them closing down, I could see them ending new content, but they have this huge library of videos, tapes, films, whatever you want to call it, merchandise. They have so much stuff that they could sell the rights to. So they're all the McMahons in particular, Vince in particular, are always going to be making money off this shit. But when you say closing down, I would be more apt to believe in some realm of possibility they would just not continue doing new matches. But I don't think they're going to be closing down anytime soon. I think the show will go on. Will it survive the generation past Stephanie and Triple H? I think that might be more interesting. We haven't heard much about Stephanie's daughters, Triple H's daughters, but we have heard, I believe, that Shane McMahon has 3 sons, and I believe a couple of those sons really like wrestling. So I could see where Shane O'Mac's sons might come in and try to claim their throne, and that goes back to the storyline I was proposing years ago. Start planting some seeds for Stephanie's daughters versus Shane's sons. Who gets ownership? North Carolina barbecue, good point. I did go to Cookout today, and I had a chicken sandwich on barbecue chicken with pickles. Brock Lesnar. I mean, here's the thing. I did cover that, buddy. I think Brock, he might be gone for tonight, but they're going to put some extra cheese on his burger or whatever the fuck they call it. They're going to give him more money so he comes and he wrestles. I was actually thinking that Brock might win this match just because if Roman's going to do this part-time schedule, maybe they can get more out of Brock for a couple of months and then have him lose it to McIntyre. Although who cares about McIntyre now? They've effectively wasted him for the last year and a half. So on and on it goes. Okay, gentlemen, it's been good talking to you. Fighter Play Basketball, my book is available. Steven kindly bought one of my other books, my film book. But Fighter Play Basketball for all the sports fans, a distance from Avalon, and so on and so forth. Thank you very much. Goodbye. Ironic that I did the Jimmy Snuka fucking thing. I'm fired. You're fired, pal.